Stay tuned for today's Antidote, brought to you by the Renegade Success Network. Today's Antidote features a healthy dose of thought-provoking insights and information for business owners, entrepreneurs, leaders, and nonprofit professionals. Each day since March of 2020, this program has offered that one thing to help you continue on your own unique pathway to success. And now, Renegades, we bring you Bob Graham and Tom Brush.
Hey, Tom. It's all different today. I'm using an iPad, not my usual Mac. You're in a hotel room because, I think we can tell people there was a weird incident and we were concerned about your safety. So we sent you to a hotel room so that, the Renegade Success Network, no matter what happened, would survive. It was out of the abundance of precaution. Now, I noticed you got a hotel room. I did not get a hotel room. So I guess you are the brains and the operational perfection here. Yeah, I love the look. You're just looking like, what are you doing?
Sounds like I'm in either the witness protection program. And it sounds like you're the beauty. If I'm the brains, you're the beauty of the group.
And we are in real trouble today and every day.
Yeah, usually, pretty much. Well, good morning, Bob. How are you doing today?
I'm doing okay. How are you?
I can't be better. Well, that's not true. I could be better, but I'm doing very well. Thanks.
Nice. Great. Yeah. So why don't we try something different today? Why don't we just tell them exactly who we are and what we're doing right at the beginning? I know, it's crazy.
It's a Renegade idea. Why not? Go ahead. Go for it.
Oh. So
your idea.
You know by now, that's Tom on Bob. What we do every morning is we try to help you figure out some common business challenge, some personal challenge, something that's probably getting in your way. And I'll admit to you, some days it may not be the issue you're dealing with. Some days you'll go, whoa, it's like these guys are in my head. But what Tom and I try to do is talk through it, help you uncover and discover some different perspectives that we try to bring to it. And then after that, we share our one thing, our today's antidote, our way that we think that you might consider things a little differently as you go forward. And I was thinking the other day, Tom, as I was running, that we've done over 400 of these and we've been doing these antidotes every day. That's almost 1,000 antidotes. 1,000 possible different ways to look at the world that you and I have put together day by day. And I know you've had that feeling, and I certainly have had that feeling like, I didn't know that was what I was going to say. I didn't. And so I think what I like about this sometimes is we're actually discovering as we go. This is not scripted. This is not Monday we're going to tell them this, Thursday we're going to tell them that, next Tuesday we're going to tell them that, and we've mapped it out for the next 3 years. We are on the fly because, like the people that we're trying to help, we're going through these things ourselves. We might be a step or two ahead of you, but we've been there. And some days we're doing it just like you are.
Well, sure. And I think the other thing too is the beauty of it not being scripted is it's what's real. When you script something, you take out any impact, anything that could happen. Usually. I mean, there's always some things that can happen. But I think when it's unscripted, it's just real what you're feeling in the moment, and you provide some flexibility. Like we could sit down and say, this is what my antidote is going to be today. Okay. Well, if the conversation doesn't head that way, it's going to be kind of awkward. And at the end, I'm like, well, let me tell you about my antidote. It doesn't really relate to what we discussed. And yet it's what I think is what would be of value today. And I think that's, part of it. And I think part of being, how we would define a renegade is someone who's willing to let me see how it plays out. And I'm not going to judge this is actually a interesting foreshadow into our conversation today, but I'm not going to judge what the results are going to be because I'm going to gain, and we are going to gain in the next somewhere between 20 and 27 minutes based on our recent length of episodes. We're going to gain new insight. What's real for us is going to change. Our knowledge, experience, and perspective is going to be different based on what we say, what a comment comes in, what comes into our head based on what we say. And I think, the willingness to go with that, to be comfortable with, I'm not exactly sure what the results are going to be. And I'm okay with that. And I'm going to see, because I think the results may change based on what the next few minutes look like. So I love the fact that it's, in some regards, not completely scripted. It allows us to do what's real.
I love it. So if you're new, that's what we do. We also start the program after a little banter that you just heard. We go into a celebration mode. Tom and I both have found that celebrating what happens along the way is really important to success. And I keep hearing in my head every day we go through this, it's not the destination, it's the journey. And if we're going to go on that journey, you have to have points along that journey where you stop and go, wow, I've come really far. Or, wow, look at that pretty mountain over there. And so that's part of why we celebrate. So, Tom, today I am celebrating the fact that my new lengthened, regripped golf clubs that were driving me crazy for about a week, I used them yesterday and shot under 100, which for me is really good. So it was a great day just to finally see that my decision to buy these clubs and invest in regripping them and extending them actually had some benefit. And it was a great business lesson for me also, because I wanted a quick solution. And it took me almost 3 weeks of finding someone to regrip them and extend them, taking them to the driving range, getting used to the fact that they're heavier and they're weighted differently and they're longer. And now they are like just normal. And I think that the real lesson to me yesterday wasn't that I played great golf. It was that things take time and you have to give them the time due, which is almost like an extra antidote today. Look at that. So what are you celebrating, Tom? What was that?
My wife's trying to FaceTime me right now. That's not you.
Is she FaceTiming you and saying something like, Tom, your shirt's on backwards? Or...
Right, or something's going on. Get that, that she's getting a glare off of my forehead.
So what are you celebrating?
Well, before I dive into mine, although thanks for asking, I think it's interesting because one of the things is you had some expectations about what the results were going to be. And
we're almost switching this whole episode around, aren't we?
I know. And what's interesting about that is it's only part of the equation.
Yes.
Clubs are one piece of the equation. And I think that's a big part, things that we forget sometimes in business is that there are tools that we have available to us. Technology, physical tools, the skills that we've developed. And yet that's only a part of the puzzle. The other part is that we have to be a part of it. So, and it's always interesting to me that people expect they're going to buy new clubs and that's going to completely change their game. Needless to say, their swing is the same it has been forever. And so whether with, yes, better technology might improve things a little bit. And until you work on the other parts of it, your swing, your mindset, all of those things, your physical fitness, things won't change. Some things won't change. They'll stay the same. So
I don't think I told you this, Tom, yet, but I was on the driving range Saturday afternoon and I was still struggling with the clubs. And there was another guy there. It was just the two of us and we're chatting a little bit. And he watched me swing one time and he's like, hey, I don't normally do this. Can I give you a suggestion? I was like, yeah, sure. I'll take anything at this point. I was really frustrated. And he's like, you've got to keep your feet grounded. You want to feel like you're always pushing down with your feet. And that was the simple shift that changed everything. I was just not grounded. And he said, he's like, I'm such a better coach than I am a player. And I said, it's easy in some ways because you can see what I can't see. And he said, we were getting ready to leave. I'm like, do you want me to buy you a drink? Because he made a big difference. And yesterday I heard his voice. You got to keep your feet grounded the whole day. And the clubs at that point, it had nothing to do with the clubs.
Right.
I bought the clubs expecting, you're right, to play better. What actually needed to happen was I needed to take the clubs and interpret them and make them what fit me. And this guy had the missing piece for me.
Sure. He had a missing piece.
A missing piece. Yeah, there are many
If he had all the
pieces
missing
in my golf
pieces,
game.
you probably would have shot 67, not 95. Just
Yeah.
saying. So back to your question, what am I celebrating today?
Yes.
I am celebrating, and this is an admission. So I am celebrating my wife today. Because
who just FaceTimed you and you didn't take her call.
I know. Might be 2 days in a row of putting my foot in my mouth. But so yesterday, I was celebrating coming to Hamilton College, where I went to school and where I'm on the alumni council and a volunteer. And you asked if Liz was going. And I said she can't. And I made an assumption without asking her if she would like to join me, that she had to work. And so she couldn't join. So that was not correct. So I just wanted to clear the air that was my assumption. And as we know, assuming things is not going to get you very far.
In business or in marriage.
Correct. And
so is she now there with you, or
she is not? No.
She couldn't make it, but she would have liked to have been invited.
Definitely. And that's, looking back, if we could change things, I would do differently.
Well, and that's being a renegade. A renegade is able to look back and go, hey, that didn't go as I expected. What would I do next time? And make that mental note. So next time, hey, Liz, a couple weeks from now, I'm going up to Hamilton. It's that alumni thing that I blew you off on last year. We could be interested in going this year. Yeah. And maybe even getting the schedule a little early. And because I know she schedules some stuff in advance.
Yes.
And saying to her, hey, this is the weekend. If you could get free that weekend, it would be great to have you.
Absolutely. So
I don't think you've ever made an admission like that on this program.
Well, because I try not to, although I probably have stuck my foot in my mouth a few times over the last 422 episodes.
And you were worried about me in Dollywood.
Oh no, you should still be worried about that. Saying, for those of you who don't know, Bob made a comment about being near Dollywood when he was in Tennessee, and saying he avoided it and went to a better museum.
No,
I think you
did.
I
don't remember saying better. I said a knife museum.
Oh, you said a knife, and I thought you said
it was nice.
That's correct.
Yes,
I stand correct.
It was a miscommunication. My diction was not the way it should be.
Correct. And so Liz, my wife, who loves Dolly, and we went to Dollywood earlier this year. And she definitely made note of that. So she made note of what you said earlier this week and what I said earlier this week. So she must be an avid listener.
So what we need to do is get Liz off Facebook really quickly.
Or we need to sometimes
fix it up.
think a little bit more about what we're going to say before we just jump and say it.
Can't imagine.
Yeah.
So Tom, the third thing we do is we celebrate something nationally. There are all kinds of national celebrations. And today's celebration is National Inner Beauty Day. Inner Beauty, which I love.
You don't love outer beauty?
My outer beauty is not nearly as great as my inner beauty. And the other thing about inner beauty
sounds like a judgment to me, but
it's like, it's like the cover of the book in the book. The cover could look really good, but I read a lot of books. You start to read the book, it's like, wow, that was a really great cover. Too bad the book didn't live up to it. Inner beauty is that same thing where, the person could look perfect, but they may not match up internally. And some of the people that have been, that didn't fit what I was looking for in terms of their look or the way they approach their outer beauty, their inner beauty really shines. And I think that's what we're really talking about here is looking for the inner beauty. We all have inner beauty. We all have skills. We all have perspectives. We all have ways that we approach the world that, some turn me on, some turn me off. That's just the way it goes, and I think that whole idea of inner beauty also fits the idea of being a renegade, because I think when one renegade meets another renegade, often where they find common ground is in the inner beauty aspect. Wow, you see this thing. Like you and I really bonded. If you think back to it, the first thing we bonded over was our shared frustration with networking events.
Mhm.
Our inner beauty, if you will, was there's got to be a different way to do this.
Yes,
This
definitely.
isn't delivering on what we both wanted. And as we talked about more, we started to see that beauty within us, we shared it, and look where we are today because of it. So I like Inner Beauty Day. It's actually one of my favorites. I wouldn't have expected that, but what do you think?
I don't know. I mean, I think it's about perspective, right? And I
Yeah.
think it's what's interesting is that what someone sees as inner beauty, others may not. And same with outer beauty. I mean, I think we
Yep.
all have outer beauty and inner beauty. It's just a matter of the perspective and what's real for the person who we're engaging or interacting with. And I think so often we judge that.
Yes.
You know, we judge it. We judge inner beauty sometimes by our initial engagement with someone. Which,
Or by their outer beauty, or not.
right.
Beauty.
Well, I was talking about inner beauty and how we would judge that based on our first interaction, not knowing where they're at, what is going on in their world. And the same thing with outer beauty. You know, we judge outer beauty right away without really taking the time to focus on what does outer beauty mean. And outer beauty some people might be, you know what, it's the way that they act, which you could say maybe is inner beauty. You could say that's their outward expression of the beauty that they have, is they're always doing things for other people. So I think that it's an interesting concept.
Mhm.
And I love the thought that it allows, one we should do before we judge someone's either inner or outer beauty is try to consider all perspectives of what that looks like. And there are so many things that you might define as either inner or outer beauty. So great day.
Well, we talk all the time about know, like, and trust.
Sure.
Right? I think that's the inner beauty component, right?
It's part of it. Absolutely.
I think it's a big part of it. Not, I can't trust you if I don't believe that you have a character that aligns with mine.
Sure.
I can't like you if you're doing things or acting in ways that just are incompatible with me for whatever reason. So I think that know, like, and trust is another way of saying, you buy from, you engage with the people who have an inner beauty that aligns with yours. Or in some cases, I think that you aspire to.
Sure. Absolutely.
All right. So the next thing we do, we actually talk about the topic. And we
Really?
kind of talked about it a little bit today already with the golf club situation, in the sense that I bought these golf clubs expecting to play better. I had played all summer and it was just time to do something and change it up. And that expectation went unmet for the first 3 weeks. For a week, I couldn't use them because they were too short. And then I had to find someone to lengthen them. And then once they were lengthened, I'm like, oh, this should be great. I go out there, hit the first ball, it goes haywire. Second ball, I don't even hit. The third ball was a practice swing. And because they're longer, I hit the ball. It was not pretty. And I think part of what I needed to do is manage those expectations better. And so what are your thoughts on all this, Tom?
Well, I think, anytime we invest, whether it's whatever resource it might be, time, effort, energy, emotion, that we often are expecting some sort of return. And I think, which is okay. I think that makes sense, right? Why else invest in it if you don't think that you're going to get some sort of return? I think our challenge is that so often either our expected return is significantly higher than probably what is reality, or it becomes a judgment or an immediate result in time. If you would, after 3 weeks, you're probably ready to send them back, try to get a refund. And
literally,
the reality is that it was likely going to take longer for you to get accustomed to it and to figure out what that looks like. Just like you go to we've talked all week about, investing in your personally or business. And, that sometimes that's a financial investment, going to a conference, doing a workshop, hiring a coach, whatever the case might be. And I think we think, okay, well, I've done this, there's going to be an immediate result. And so after 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, we take a snapshot in time and say, this is the result, rather than understand that there's going to be a result. And then go back to our 3 questions. We took an action, right? The action was you invested in something. Anytime we take an action, if we go back and say, okay, what went well, what didn't go as planned, what would I do differently? That awareness, that value that we get from that exercise is so much a return on our investment. It's learning of what we did and how we might do it differently in the future. And I think we get so hung up on those, I need this return today, rather than I need to better understand. And as things go along, there will be different snapshots in time when I'll step back and say, okay, what was the return I've had on this investment? Likely you'll pull out those clubs and, the rest of them over the next 3 weeks, and the results will be all over the place.
That is a guarantee.
Someday it'll be great and someday it won't. And I think the same is true with any other investment you make. And I think if we get caught up in a snapshot expectation of results, we miss the bigger picture. We miss the opportunity to truly learn. I don't know how many times I've heard people go to conferences and come back and say, well, there was nothing good there. Like, how can you go away with a whole bunch of new people, others sharing information that you maybe have heard, but you've never heard that person say it, and walk away and say you got no value out of that? That to me is making an immediate snapshot of results, not taking the time to go back and really learn from that experience. And maybe there was no value at all. It was just somebody making a sales pitch, and that's all it was. That still provided you with new knowledge, experience, and perspective, and has changed what now is real for you and what you may in the future attend or not attend based on what the program looks like. And so I think those expectations are what can get us in trouble.
I think they also tend to deter us from trying other things. I bought these golf clubs and they didn't work, so I'm just going to give up golf.
Correct.
Versus, hey, it's going to take some time. I'm learning every time I play. It's just, and it's the same with playing the guitar we were talking about yesterday. There are days when, you hit plateaus, you hit moments where you're like, why did I do this? And in our businesses, that happens as well. I don't think we recognize them as much, but, there are times when we just go, okay, I didn't meet my expectations. And you have a choice at that point. You can go, oh, I'm so terrible, I should give up. Oh, I got to go back. Oh, why did I do this? Or, hey, okay, what have I learned here? How can I move forward? What would I do differently? Just like you described when you were talking about with your wife. I made an assumption I shouldn't have. Now I know going forward that I need to do that differently. Doesn't mean you're going to do it perfectly next time. And you could very easily said, hey, you know what? Whatever. So I made an assumption, let it go. But you like to learn from your experiences. And I think that's part of how we grow in business and life, is to look at things and instead of be hypercritical. It's hard for me to even say it. I can be very critical of myself. I know, shock. But I'm trying to more and more step back from that and go, okay, what worked here? What didn't work here? So I hit, with that guy at the golf course, I hit probably 120 balls. The first 65, 70 were horrible. I could have left and said, boy, what a horrible waste of time and money. But I looked at the 35 I hit after he gave me the advice. I was like, wow, this is what I want to focus on. And we have that ability. And I think that's one of the things that when you're talking about results, it's, do you want to think of the negative results or positive results? Which is why you and I are so big on celebration, because there's always something to celebrate. Even if you took, hey, you know what, Bob? I respect that you went out yesterday and played golf, even though you weren't really comfortable with your golf clubs yet, and you stuck it out and you did, and you used them all the way through. Oh, wow. That is, wow. And I learned as I went. And there were some horrible shots, and there are some horrible shots in business as well.
Absolutely.
And you've gotta find a way to move forward. And what we're trying to do here is help you move forward from the successes that we tend to go, oh my God, I'm amazing. I made a beautiful sales call, or my team's working so well today. And it's like everything's perfect, to the next day when it's like, oh, nothing's working right. Why am I here? It's just, we're trying to build that. And that's what the 6-week challenge we've been talking about is really designed to do, to start building that muscle of looking at situations differently and taking the lessons away from them so that you can figure things out more quickly and so that you can prioritize based on what you learned. So I know full well, next time there's an alumni event at Hamilton, a priority to you is going to be seeing if your wife wants to go. And I'm not picking on you. I'm just saying it's a great example of a very simple thing that could have gone in a million directions. And the action item for you is not real difficult. But if Liz had been upset with you for a couple of days, I'm like, what are you upset about? And she doesn't tell you, and then you're all befuddled for a couple of days and nothing. That this was solving a situation, and that's what we need to do in business. That's what we need to do in life, and that's the thing that we're trying to do with that 6-week challenge. And if you want to learn more, I don't want to talk about the challenge. I could talk about it all day. If you want to learn more, just in the comment, feel free to write Renegade. We will get back to you right away with more information. If you're listening to the podcast, you can always send an email to ringleaders@renegadesuccessnetwork.com. Tom, you look like you have something to say.
No, you were doing very well. I think I just go back to, there's a quote, and I'm going to mess it up. There's a poem by, I think it's Rudyard Kipling, If. And there is, in that poem, there's a stanza that goes, I won't say it exactly right, but talking about if you can treat success and failure, if you can have success and failure and treat those two imposters the same, I think is the gist of it.
Yes.
And I think what I've always taken away, or not always, what I've come to realize and take away from that is that success and failure are it's just a result. Good, bad, it's an action.
And a judgment.
And right, those two things.
Your failure could be the opportunity for me to go, wow, Tom really messed that up with his wife. I gotta look at that in my marriage and see if I can fix that.
Right. And I think that, that we do that to ourselves because we want to judge the results. And I understand that. We all want to have successes, and we don't want to have what we would determine as failures.
And we expect to be perfect.
Correct. And if we instead just say, okay, I did something. What did I learn from it? How can I use that, not the results, but use that to say, I took this action. Celebrate that like we do. We talk about that all the time, that it's not always the results. I mean, yeah, the results are good. We can't control that, right? We have no control many times over the results of our actions. And so if we just can start celebrating the actions and then stepping back and saying, okay, what did I learn from it? What would I do differently? What went as I thought it would? And I think that allows us to not get into the highs and lows of staying with success too long or getting down with what we would determine as a failure and not being able to move forward with it. And I think both of those, this is why I love the word imposter that he uses in that poem, is because they are. You can get stuck in one or the other for way too long and miss out on what really came about from that and how that has changed and impacted what's real for you.
Nice. So Tom, what's your one thing today?
Oh, my one thing about investments and expected results. I think it's okay to come up with results with what you expect to come. It was fine for you to say, and rightly so. That's probably why you bought the clubs, is you thought, if I buy these clubs, my game is going to improve, or I'm going to feel better about my game, or whatever the case might be. They're going to fit me better because they're the right length, whatever. They're not just picked off the shelf. it's okay to have those results or to have those expectations. I think the key is don't live in the results for too long. Because one, they're likely going to change. And two, it's just a judgment that doesn't help you figure out how to move forward. If all you've done is like, these clubs don't work, and you set them aside, how would you know? Maybe they were the absolute right, the absolute correct decision. You just didn't wait long enough to have the results equal what you thought they might be. Because I don't think we ever can figure out how long it's going to take to get the results that we desire.
And we may never get them.
Correct.
But we will get a different, when we don't get the results we desired, often we get a different result that may in some ways be better.
There's no doubt.
I can think of situations where I was looking for a job or trying to get a job at certain places. And I thought it was a perfect situation, and then it didn't work out. They didn't offer me a job, and I would be really upset for a couple of weeks. And then invariably a couple of weeks later, something better would come along. I'm like, oh, wow.
Or just
so I think tying expectations and results to what we're doing is kind of a fool's errand. It sets us up to be far more judgmental and far more negative about stuff, because every time, the fact that I could go out yesterday and play golf when I wasn't super comfortable with my clubs, that's the success to me. I'm a perfectionist. I was playing with someone that pretty good, and I could have gotten in my head and made it a whole lot worse. So letting go of the results, I didn't even know what my score was. I didn't know until I tallied it up at the end. I knew I had a couple of good holes, but I didn't think it was below 100, which was my goal. So I was literally not thinking about results. I was just worried about hit the ball well. If you hit the ball well, it doesn't matter. The goal, if you had said to me yesterday morning, Bob, what's your goal? I want to hit every shot solidly. It's all I care about. I don't care where it goes. It could go to the next hole for all I care. And I think getting that distance from results often helps us get far better results, because we're not overanalyzing, over magnifying, over stressing over them. Oh, I had a bad hole. Now I'm never going to score well. Didn't happen.
Sure.
I think my first 3 holes were really bad. Didn't affect me like usual, because I'm like, I just want to make contact with the ball. That's all I got.
Yeah, I love it.
So,
did you offer your one thing?
Yeah, somewhere in there it was.
Okay.
They'll decipher it.
All right. We'll let others determine.
Don't get too connected to those results. And I would also say, look for the hidden gems in what you actually did achieve. Because when you start to think that way, it's like, wow, even though I didn't achieve that goal, I did do something out of my comfort zone.
There is definitely something about unexpected results that we receive. And if you start to think about those, I tend to believe you're going to find a lot more gems than sometimes in the expected results.
I would agree with you completely.
All right.
Tom, you want to bring us home?
Sure. Why not?
Okay.
Thanks so much, everybody, for joining us today, whether you were listening to the podcast or watching us on Facebook Live or watching us later, maybe on YouTube.
Or you could be on Twitter or YouTube.
I was getting there.
I'll be quiet.
All right. And I was listening to a podcast on my drive yesterday. And
was it called Today's Antidote? I love those guys. They're awesome.
No, they are really good. It was not that. But it was another one and one of the things they said at the end of every show was, because I was binging it, was if you really liked what you heard today, please rate us. Give us a rating, because that will help get the content out for more people. So if you're listening to the podcast, please rate our show so that others may discover.
5 stars.
Now you're focused on results. I just want them to listen.
I'll cry if we get 1 star, Tom. I'll cry. You know me. I'm a fragile little flower.
That sounds like we're going to have to do some in-show coaching coming up.
Oh boy.
Where Bob gets super uncomfortable. It's so much fun.
I'm uncomfortable even thinking about it.
I can believe it. So anyhow, if you are listening to that, you can also share it with your family and friends, because there are people out there who are looking for some new thoughts or ideas. Maybe they're trying to be a renegade, but nobody else is around them supporting them. Or they're just following their own unique pathway and hadn't even considered the thought that they might be a renegade. And this might be something that could really benefit them as they are searching for their own unique pathway to success. The other thing you can do is you can always join our Facebook group, The Ring of Renegades, where we are helping entrepreneurs, business leaders, and small business owners figure out how to take their next step, and people who just want to be a renegade. So it's easy to do. Just go to Facebook, search for Ring of Renegades, and you just have to ask to join because it's a private group. And then tell us why you're a renegade, and you can be a part of our growing community. And so with that,
over 1,000 strong.
Over 1,000 strong. Yes.
People seem impressed by that. So I like to put that in there.
Again, we can have a whole other thing about impressing people, and
we need to wrap this up.
Still work to do. So we hope that you go out and have an amazing day, and we look forward to seeing you either inside the Ring of Renegades Facebook group or tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. Eastern time, for our next edition of today's Antidote. Have a great day, everyone.
Hey, embrace the renegade in you. See, that time we did it the normal way.
Okay, I screwed up yesterday. I'll take that. I've been doing a lot of screwing up lately, so I'll just continue to take it.
I'm glad to see it shifted. I've waited over 400 episodes to see that trend go the other way.
Fair enough. All right, take care, everyone. Thanks for listening to today's Antidote, powered by the Renegade Success Network. The Renegade Success Network helps you confidently create your own unique pathway to success. To learn more about the Renegade Success Network and how you can take your next step, follow us on Twitter, connect on LinkedIn, or join the Ring of Renegades Facebook group. For full details on how you can join our community, go to renegadesuccessnetwork.com. Embrace the renegade in you.